First, let's turn it over to Madeline Rivera, who is live in D.C. with the very latest on that Washington, D.C. pipe bomber probe. Hi, Maddie.
Good morning, Carly and Todd. The suspect, 30-year-old Brian Cole Jr., is expected to appear before a federal judge today. He's facing 2 federal charges: transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and attempted malicious destruction by means of fire and explosive materials. Cole's arrest comes after 5 years of searching. Agents visited more than 1,200 homes and businesses, conducted more than 1,000 interviews, and reviewed approximately 39,000 video files. But investigators say it was a new look at old information in the original file that broke the case.
Today's arrest happened because the Trump administration has made this case a priority. That evidence has been sitting there collecting dust. This wasn't a new tip. It wasn't some new evidence. It was the hard work of President Trump's administration.
Authorities spent the majority of Thursday outside Cole's home in a Washington suburb. According to court documents, cell phone pings indicate Cole's cell phone was in the area of the RNC and DNC the night of the crime, January 5th, 2021, the night before the U.S. Capitol riot.
We went back and looked at the cell phone tower data dumps. We went back and looked at the providers and what information they provided pursuant to search warrants at the time, and asked questions such as why weren't all the phone numbers scrubbed and why weren't they connected and why wasn't there any geolocational data done? Now, that is either sheer incompetence or complete intentional negligence, and neither of which is acceptable for this FBI.
But investigators have not publicly shared why Cole allegedly targeted the DNC and RNC headquarters.
This is chapter 1 of a 10-20 chapter book. This investigation is not over at all. The investigation has just begun. We've interviewed the subject at length. We are still going through an enormous amount of process, accounts. So it would be very early for me to get out ahead of that on motive.
Cole's court appearance is expected to take place 1:30 p.m. local time today. Carly and Todd.
All right, Madeline Rivera live for us in Washington. Maddie, thank you. Let's bring in former DHS advisor and former Secret Service Supervisory Special Agent Charles Marino. Charles, thank you so much for joining us. So it looks like it took a new look at old information when it comes to the cell phone data that led to this arrest that was a long time in the making. What do you make of these new developments?
Well, I've got to say this doesn't put the Biden administration's Department of Justice in a very good light here, considering that all of this evidence has been in hand over at the department and at the FBI. What needed to change was the urgency being assigned to the task of solving this crime and providing the resources to get the job done. Apparently, the Trump administration wanted to solve this case, unlike the previous administration.
So to be clear, if the Biden administration had prioritized this case like the Trump administration did, you were pretty confident that this suspect would have been caught prior to literally yesterday. It would have been done in the previous 4 years. Is that what you're saying, Charles?
Well, the chances would have increased exponentially. Why wouldn't they scrub all of these phone numbers, all of this data that somebody took the time to go and swear out a search warrant and execute the search warrant on this information and on these locations? So the fact that the Department of Justice had all of this evidence in all of its forms going close to 5 years is unacceptable. And look, sometimes it takes departments like the Department of Justice and the FBI to bring in additional outside resources to look at these cases in a different way, or where technical expertise is needed where it doesn't exist inside of these agencies. So yes, absolutely, it should have been solved.
Well, we know very little about this suspect because he led a low-profile life, didn't have a big social media presence. And according to U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, his closest friends are his family. He lived with his mom and his sisters. He would go to work for a few hours a day. His father had a bail bondsman company. What are your thoughts when it comes to a motive here?
Yeah, good question. Likely some type of radicalization attached to a group like Antifa, for example, or any other association. We've not heard the word, foreign terrorism come up yet, showing that there's been no connectivity at this point in time. to any foreign group. So ideally, this is going to be a localized group, and it's going to allow the FBI to continue to conduct this investigation. That's the important part. This may not be just one individual, but it might be an individual who's been supported by a larger group, and that includes materials and that includes financing.
Would they have arrested the individual at this point and potentially jeopardize the investigation if there were more people connected? Is that something that is typically done in law enforcement, or is the thought process, look, we get this guy in, he spills the beans on others?
Well, public safety, of course, comes into play here, and the fact that this individual has been allowed to be on the streets for as long as he has because of inaction by the previous administration is not a good thing for the overall theme of public safety. If he did this once, what's to say he won't do it again, or even conduct an attack of something worse and more well-planned and thought out? So I think to get this individual off the street tells me, one, it was a public safety threat that was being considered, and also that the FBI and DOJ had all of the information that they needed, not only to make this arrest, but continue the investigation in an effective, methodical way to find out was he acting alone or not.
Well, FBI Director Kash Patel said the prior administration sat on evidence. There was never geolocation data done on cell phones. That is sheer incompetence or complete intentional negligence. This is something that we were just previously discussing. But why do you think that is?
Well, look, in these types of cases, I oversaw the largest electronic crimes task force in the United States when I was overseeing the Secret Service office out in San Francisco. This data is out there. It's out there for law enforcement to grab. It's very hard in this day and age to isolate yourself digitally, to remove that footprint entirely. So back to my previous point, the FBI and DOJ under the Biden administration knew that. They got the information, but why that information wasn't followed up on, or why these pieces weren't connected, is very far-fetched for me. These are very well-trained investigators over at the FBI and other federal agencies. They're used to reviewing and assessing data in this way each and every day in numerous cases. So I'm wondering if there was some type of pressure by the Biden administration to not make this case a priority. And the reason is politics. Is this individual going to be connected, as we hear reports are saying, to a left-wing radicalized group like Antifa?
Well, we do not know that just yet. We will soon find out. But what we do know is that if he did, in fact, make these bombs and place them in January of 2021, every single day that he was not arrested and in custody, there was the risk that he could do it again, which is a very real and scary thing. Charles, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.